One serious gambit that you wish you knew earlier before your chess journey became boring. This, ladies and gentlemen, is something that you will love. Let's start over. So after white plays pawn to d4, you want to respond with knight f6. And immediately they play the top played move pawn to c4. You want to play e5, called the Budapest Gambit. But the idea is not to play the main Budapest, where you go bishop b4, knight c6, queen e7, blah blah blah. Nope. See, after white plays the top played move knight f3, we just want to play pawn to d6. Period. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my top 10 favorite gambit series, where we'll be looking at the 9th most powerful gambit on my list, in no particular order, by the way. In this position, the top played move, as you can see in the Lichess database, is e takes d6. And now this is where you take back with your bishop. There's a little trap in this line which you want to master. If white gets uncomfortable with your knight on g4, guess what? You simply want to sacrifice it on f2, double attacking the rook and the queen like that. And if white dares to take back, guess what? One, you can go bishop c5 if you are Hikaru, or simply play bishop g3, check if you are you. This is the most simplest thing you can do, stopping the king from going back to e1. So white will be forced to take your bishop, after which you take on d1 like that. And this is called the Budapest Variation. See that you are threatening to take the dark square bishop, so white needs to be very careful here, maybe playing moves like knight c3 that also attacks your queen, but you just rescue it like this, go queen d6 check. Yes, bishop f4 will be played, and here is how you can rescue it, by simply playing another forcing move like queen g6 check, forcing that king to go back either to f2 or to h2, and then protect your c7 pawn like this, or just play pawn to c6. Knight s6 is more practical as you are defending while developing a piece as well. End of line. Once again, d4, knight f6, c4, e5, pawn takes, knight g, knight f, d6, pawn takes, and bishop takes. We saw how bad h3 can be. Now hold on, there are some theory followers who love making moves like knight d2 in this position, which is not really bad. But I just want to make a point. Listen, they want to play pawn to e4 next. I want you to try this. Just cast a shot in this position, putting your king to safety. Once again, let me show you how bad pawn to h3 can be in almost all the variations. If white plays pawn to h3 once again, this time you even have a more nasty move, which is knight e3. And point is, you are attacking the queen and the bishop like that. White has to play something like queen b3, and then you just go ahead and take that bishop. They'll probably take back with a knight, and then you start playing normal chess. What have you achieved? First, a bishop pair advantage. Another thing, you kind of messed up your opponent's plans. Anyway, just wanted to show you that in most of these variations, pawn to h3 shouldn't be much of a worry to you. If you like what I do on YouTube, please subscribe to this channel. Remember, you are doing it for the existence of this channel, or rather for this channel to survive. The more you subscribe, the more I feel motivated. There's another line that I am eager to show you if you continue watching this video. Again, d4, knight f6, c4, e5, d takes, knight g, knight f, and this time instead of pawn to d6 right away, guess what? We first of all go bishop. Now once again, this won't be the normal Budapest. I just want to show you a little trick that you can try in your bullet games and blitz games. So watch this. In this position, pray that your opponent covers this check with the knight. Once you see this move, you want to start looking for some tactical combinations. I'm going to show you one tricky line for blitz. So instead of playing standard moves like knight c6 and queen e7, which are all fine, you just play bishop e7. Wait a second, what are we doing with this bishop? Check. If you play knight c6, a standard move, white is very much prepared to play pawn to a3 or h3 in this position, and they know you are going to take on e5. Play like this if you are playing a rapid match or a serious classical game, but I'm showing you quick tricks that we use in blitz games to win very quickly. That's the point of this study. So instead of playing knight c6, just play bishop e7, because now white sees that you don't have knight takes e5 this time due to your absence of your knight, so they'll play pawn to h3. Once this happens, now you want to disturb their plan. How? by sacrificing your knight on e3 once again. You want to play this like a genius. By the way, if white takes, I forgot to mention that there's a mate in 3 beginning with bishop h4 check. If g3, that becomes a mate in 2, mate in 1. If white takes with a knight, again you can just take back, pap, and after g3, you checkmate them like that. Once again, white will be forced to play something like queen b3, and your whole plan is just to capture the light squared bishop like that. Knight takes, and then just like before, you go knight s6. It's always good to play like this, if you think about it. Continue playing chess. That's what I'm just talking about here, in simple terms. Once again, d4, knight f6, c4, e5, pawn takes, knight g, knight f, d6, pawn takes, and bishop takes. Note that even after white plays pawn to g3, you can still sacrifice your knight here on f2, and you're still going to get the same sequence of moves after king takes. You still have bishop takes on g3 check. The king can't go back, and you'll be able to win that free queen. Anyway, what else can white do? The top played move knight c3. I have a secret line I want to recommend to you guys. You first start with knight c6. Remember these knights? Point is, now if white plays pawn to h3, you simply sacrifice your knight on h2. No, just bring it to e5. Got you. Point is, there's this strategy of leaving our knight on e5 for good in the Budapest. Remember, a knight on the rim is dim. You don't want to put any of your knights at the edge of the board. Knights belong on the center. When a knight is on the center of the board, it's covering a lot of squares. Sometimes even if you are not attacking anything, it is the coverage that counts. You are limiting your opponent's moves. They can't do certain things due to your coverage, and that's why we want to leave our knight on the center like that. I call that the Babylon knight for no reason. In this position, most of your opponents are going to play pawn to e3. You can see it's the top played move. Why not? They want to develop the bishop and castle shot next. But guess what? Out of everything good you can do, such as castle shot, bishop f5, and even pawn to s6, which are all playable, by the way. Even in classical tournaments, I recommend you play this sneaky move, queen f6, since this is a series for Blitz chess. Remember, our theme is the top 10 most powerful gambits for Blitz. Anyway, this is also playable in classical. Queen f6 has a hidden threat. If white continues playing normally like bishop e2, for example, now you uncover your mask. Go queen g6. With this move, you are stopping white from castling short, because if they do so, now it is you who is going to take on h3 with your bishop, and you just equalized material, plus you have a strong advantage, bishop f3. There's nothing much you can do. I mean, if you take that bishop, white would take back, right? And your attack won't go anywhere. So here you can play pawn to c6. Remember, the bishop is also targeting the b7 pawn, so that's why pawn to c6 wins. Sometimes you can play castle long, but c6 also stops knight d5 or knight b5 in some lines. And from here, say after rook e1, maybe getting away from danger, you can even play moves like rook d8. Oh, the c4 pawn is under attack. Maybe we are going to win that. Or perhaps go bishop b4 first, attacking the queen and knight, and white is dead. I mean, they can't play queen c2 due to queen takes. Remember this queen g6 strategy that we played, and that's why white can't castle short right in this position after you play queen g6. If they try bishop f3, once again you need to realize that you are not the only one who is playing chess. Your opponent is eyeing something on b7. That's why moves like c6 are great in this specific line. Knight d3 check is also playable if you want to disturb your opponent's plans of castling short or delaying their development. In this position, you can also put your king to safety if you want. You just don't want to be greedy and start taking free things like the pawn on c4. You need to use your mind all the time when you are playing a gambit. There is queen a4 check. In this position, you will lose that knight. If I were you here, I would play pawn to c6 once again, stopping knight d5 or knight b5. What can they even do in this position? Maybe pawn to b3. If that happens, you always have bishop b4, pinning the knight to the king. If bishop d2 is played, first you have knight d3 check, disturbing white's plans. Oh, play it casually with the move bishop f5. Still, white can't cast a shot due to bishop takes. If they ever get tired, maybe with the move pawn to g4 here, you even have moves like what? Bishop c2, because if queen e2 is played, you can simply castle long, castle short, rook takes d2 for example, and white is dead. Pap, check. Another hidden variation which most of your opponents won't know about, especially in Blitz, in over-the-board games, is this one which I'm going to show you now. Take notes. After d4, knight f6, c4, e5 and pawn takes. Instead of going knight g4, this time you play knight e4 slowly but sure. You see, there's this tendency of players attacking your pieces. Just quickly, in this position, the only thing you need to remember is any move that white plays apart from knight c3 and a3, they'll probably end up losing very quickly. How? Watch. For example, if white plays the top played move knight f3, you take a moment. You don't rush to make the next move. Let them think, let them calm down to see your next possible blunder. This is another bullet trick for you guys. So you go pawn to b6 right away, and you took some time to make this move in order to let your opponent see this possible blunder. They'll play queen d5, thinking your rook and your knight are both hanging. But guess what? White is not going to win anything here. In fact, feel free to give them even the third piece. Let them take everything. And I'm not joking, because if it takes bishop, you first of all have knight c6 in this position. And if you think about it, we are just one move away from trapping that queen. For example, if they play something like queen a6 trying to escape from Sobibo, we first of all go bishop b4 check. And there's a reason. This bishop doesn't only threaten the king, it also keeps an eye on the a3 square. For example, if white plays bishop d2 in this position, now this is when you play knight c5. White's queen is almost trapped. And that's why we started with bishop b4 check, if you think about it, to cover that a3 square. So the only safe move white can play here is queen b5 if they attempt to save their queen. But guess what? Now you first of all take on d2 with check, and after knight b takes, you simply go a6. And finally, the queen is trapped. There's a slight difference here. After queen a6, you need to remember to play bishop b4 check first in order to cover the a3 square in advance. This is theory. If you just rush with the move knight c5 after queen a6, white can safely rescue their queen like this, putting it on a3. And whatever you can do here, for example, knight e4, they can just play queen d3 or queen e3 to save everything. That's why bishop b4 check is very crucial in this line to cover the a3 square. After that, that's when you attack the queen, and after that, you oversimplify the game and then trap the queen like that. So this is just a simple trap in the variation called the Fajarowicz that I wanted to show you guys still in the Budapest. So I just wanted to give you all these hidden lines in the Budapest other than the one that you know, which is common on YouTube, so that you can surprise most of your opponents. Lastly, let me conclude with what most of you guys know. The Budapest main line with d4, knight f6, c4, e5, d takes, then knight g4, knight f3, knight c6, double attacking the e5 pawn, which white players mostly defend, and then you go bishop b4 check, they play knight b d2, and then you play queen e7. Point is, if white ever tries to attack your dark squared bishop, you don't do anything to that bishop. You first of all take on e5, that's what you guys know, so that if knight takes, again, you don't do anything to the bishop, you take back. If they ever take your bishop at any point in time, you have this famous smoothed checkmate. I bet most of you guys already know about this, but just to give you a heads up, the main idea of playing this type of Budapest, as I always say in my videos, is to place one of your knights on e5 for good. Leave your knight on e5 for good, any of your knights. For example, after queen e7, a3, knight takes, knight takes, knight takes, and pawn to e3. You may want to take on d2 first. Your bishop was hanging this time. After queen takes, that's when you play pawn to d6 and leave that knight on e5 for good. It must challenge the dark sword bishop, so in the long run, white will be forced to give up their bishop pair as well. At best, you even want to take back with your e-pawn so that it sits on e5. That's what you want to do. They play bishop e2, you just castle short. They castle short, you remember to play this favorite line of mine, pawn to b6, bishop b7. You leave your bishop to control that highlighted diagonal for good. Play like this and you will thank me later. By the way, you can check the Masters database. This is what Grandmasters also love doing the most. They play pawn to b6, and after b4, they play bishop b7. After rook sc1, they play rook at d8, for example, and continue with life. You play queen f6, pap, do whatever you want from here. Play with your pieces. Leave your pawns intact, just like this. Chess will solve itself. And that was my 9th favorite gambit for Blitz out of my top 10 favorites. Let me know which other gambit you want me to cover in more detail in this series. This is your opportunity to suggest something in your comments that I will respond to in a video, and I'll shout out your names, etc. Thank you for watching. Allow me to reintroduce this channel. Most of my viewers on my main channel, KaspaChess, are more interested to watch long form videos, and this is where this second channel comes in, where I post funny clips from my main channel and other interesting short form videos of chess traps that I can't post on my main channel. So be sure to subscribe to this channel as well. By the way, you can check out my courses at www.kaspachess.com or on my Patreon page. That's how you support this channel. By the way, I don't ask for donations or free money, so the way you support this channel is by joining one of our membership tiers on Patreon or simply buying my courses. That really helps.